They fined me $750 for trimming my own hedges, 3 inches too low, they said, then sent a security patrol to my porch at 6:14 a.m. I didn't open the door. I just photographed their badges and wrote the time on my palm. Welcome to HOA Fallout. I'm Daniel Brooks, a municipal planner out of Jacksonville, Florida. This is my side of the story. A story about how my neighborhood turned from palm trees and block parties into subpoenas and spotlight patrols. If you've ever tangled with an HOA or plan to buy a home inside one, stick around. Where are you watching from? I bought the house 9 years ago, cashing out my late father's small construction firm. He'd built porches and decks all across Duval County, believed that a man's fence line was sacred. When he died, I promised Mom I'd keep our name clean, no shortcuts. So when the new HOA board started issuing fines like they were parking tickets, I thought I'd reason with them. I was wrong. The first letter came folded in thirds, cream paper, embossed seal. Unapproved modification to front hedgerow, $250 per day until remedied. I called the number, got a voicemail that said, Compliance Division. The next morning, a board member named Kurt Millman knocked on my door, polo tucked too tight, clipboard raised like a badge. Daniel, we've had complaints. Standards are standards. I trimmed the hedges myself, I told him. Same as every spring. That's not the issue, he said, glancing at my driveway. Consistency maintains property values. The word values echoed like a gavel. My daughter, 12 at the time, peeked through the blinds. I waved her back. By week's end, they'd tacked another notice. Parking obstruction, then exterior lighting variance. It felt coordinated, like someone flipped a switch. I started keeping a binder. Dates, names, envelope colors. I photographed each notice against that day's newspapers. Little forensic habits from my city job. The wound that cut deepest wasn't the fines. It was watching my wife Lena flinch every time a white SUV slowed in front of our house. The HOA had hired private patrol, ex-sheriff types in khaki vests. They'd idle by at night, headlights off, notepads glowing under dashlight. Once, one of them called out, "Routine drive-by, ma'am," and she spilled her coffee on her lap. I told myself to stay measured. Document everything, engage nothing emotionally. That's what we tell developers when residents rage over zoning lines. Stay in the record. So I did. Still, the next board meeting broke something. Kurt stood at the podium, microphone squealing, and said to the crowd, "Certain residents think they're above community standards. We'll handle it." I raised my hand. "Can you specify which standards, Kurt?" He smiled. "Daniel, if you'd read your covenants instead of rewriting them, you'd know." Laughter. Applause from the same 7 chairs up front. That's when I noticed a woman in the back filming. New resident, navy sweatshirt, quiet confidence. She caught my eye, mouthed, "I've got you." Her name was Erin Caldwell, retired master-at-arms, Navy security detail for 12 years. She'd moved here after her husband's deployment. The next day she dropped off a flash drive. "You'll want this," she said. "Audio from last night. Florida's one-party consent state. You're clean." Knowledge nugget number 1. In Florida, recording a conversation is legal if at least one party to it consents. Important when public meetings try to muzzle accountability. I played the recording that night. Heard Kurt joke off mic about running that planner out before he ruins our leverage. I didn't yet know what leverage meant, but I planned to find out. The next morning, Erin joined me over black coffee on my porch. She set down a folder stamped with a red county seal. "These guys applied for a zoning variance 2 months ago," she said. "Common ground parcel. They want to sell it for commercial use. Gas station frontage. Needs unanimous resident notice." "They didn't notify anyone," I said. "Exactly." The file listed parcel 7B22, 3.8 acres of buffer land behind the playground. If sold, our HOA fees would technically subsidize the legal transfer. That was their leverage. Control the land, control the budget, control dissent. That's when I decided. I wouldn't outshout them. I'd outdocument them, quietly. Erin smirked. "You look like a man who just found his war footing." "I'm a planner," I said. "War's just another kind of meeting." The next board circular arrived 3 days later, a community compliance sweep scheduled for the weekend to ensure harmony. Harmony, what a word. I checked the notice header, printed fine at the bottom. Authorization under Article 9, Section 4. I opened my binder. Section 4 didn't exist. They'd fabricated the citation. That night, I typed up a certified complaint to the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation. One copy for the file, one for the state, one taped discreetly to the HOA bulletin board by the pool. By Monday, Kurt was fuming. "You think you can undermine us with paperwork?" "I think paperwork is how laws work," I said. His finger jabbed the air. "You'll regret this." Maybe. But I had time, records, and an ally who once taught base security. And something in me, maybe Dad's stubborn streak, clicked into alignment. 2 weeks later, the harassment turned procedural. A slip tucked under my wiper blade read, "Grass length exceeds community standard, 3.75 inches measured." The irony was that I'd mowed that morning, measuring the mower deck myself. Still, they stacked the fines, $50 a day. Then came the wellness check. 2 patrol cars, same ex-sheriff contractors, flashing amber instead of red. They claimed concern after my garage light stayed on overnight. I asked for a written record of the complaint. One shrugged. "Anonymous." I filmed the encode. "Unter. Visible phone, no aggression, date stamped," and sent a calm email to the HOA general inbox. "Please cite governing authority for private contractors to conduct welfare checks." No reply, but I saw Kurt that evening at the park, whispering to another board member by the swing set. Erin called it slow bleed tactics. She'd seen them on bases, pressure without bruises. "They'll hope you snap," she said, sliding a new stack of printouts across my kitchen table. "But if you outlast the cycle, they show their tells." That night, my daughter asked if we could move. Her voice was small, practical. "You can't fight everybody, Dad." I told her what my father told me when inspectors tried to shake him down years ago. "You don't fight, you prove." So I built a wall of proof. Emails, timestamps, photos, a cloud backup labeled "if they escalate." I wasn't planning for drama, just defense. The second engagement point came when I decided to loop others in. I uploaded a redacted clip of the wellness check to a community Facebook group. Within an hour, 27 comments. Half said, "Good for you." The other half, mostly HOA loyalists, called me a troublemaker. I pinned my reply. "If you've dealt with HOA overreach, drop one tactic that helped you. If you haven't, this is your chance to leave your message for them here." Erin commented, "Paper beats gossip, always has." 3 nights later, an envelope slid under my door. No stamp, no return. Inside, a warning from the Architectural Review Committee claiming my fence stain was unapproved walnut tone. I laughed out loud. The color was original from purchase, same as my neighbor's. I walked out front, camera rolling, and compared boards side by side. Identical. Knowledge nugget number 2. Under Florida statute A72.3035, HOAs must apply architectural standards uniformly. Selective enforcement nullifies penalties. At dawn, I caught one of their inspectors snapping photos of my lawn from the sidewalk. I greeted him by name, Todd, and asked for his credentials. He turned beet red, muttered something about board directive. I jotted it down. By that weekend, the binder had grown to 2 inches thick. Erin called it the gospel according to HOA. Then a small but crucial thread appeared. While reviewing the variance documents again, I noticed a reference to Parcel 7B22 title transfer, escrowed under Davidson Civic Holdings LLC. The name rang faintly familiar. A quick public record search showed the LLC's mailing address matched Kurt's brother-in-law's office. They were planning to sell association-owned property to themselves. I printed the page and slid it into a new section labeled Leverage Leads. That same day, during a community BBQ by the pool, Kurt confronted me. He wore aviators, casual shirt, trying to look neighborly. "Daniel, you've made this personal. You're scaring residents." I smiled. "No, Kurt, you're scaring them. I'm documenting it." He leaned close. "You think this paper armor saves you? We built the bylaws." "Then you should have read the statute that overrides them," I said. He froze for a second, maybe realizing I wasn't bluffing. I didn't sleep much that night. Every creak sounded like another citation coming. I walked the street at 2 a.m. barefoot on the cool asphalt and saw Erin sitting in her truck, eyes scanning the cul-de-sac. "Routine patrol," she joked. Someone's got to watch the watchers, I said. We sat there, two silhouettes under the streetlight, sharing black coffee from her thermos. She told me she'd once seen base commanders crumble faster than HOA boards when paper trails hit daylight. They fear exposure more than guns, she said. The next morning, I received an email marked urgent. The HOA scheduled a special compliance hearing regarding my pattern of hostility. I read the bylaws twice. No such procedure existed. But the email header contained a goldmine, an internal CC to their attorney noting verify property transfer timeline before escalation. That was the phrase I'd been waiting for, property transfer timeline. Proof they were worried about the parcel sale crossing a legal threshold. I forwarded the email to my city attorney friend, Marisol Vega, who'd once helped me on zoning disputes. She called within the hour. Daniel, they're walking into a buzzsaw. That parcel's under county maintenance easement until 12/31. They can't sell squat. Can we prove it? I asked. Already did, she said. Public record. I'll send you the file. I printed it, stamped it. File Duval County, 7/14/2023, Book 92, page 314, and slid it into my binder behind a red tab marked Silence Until Ready. I wasn't going to reveal it yet. Let them commit one more procedural overreach. Then I'd show the paper they'd buried under their own greed. Meanwhile, I watched my wife relax a little, finally watering her garden again without glancing over her shoulder. My daughter rode her bike with Aaron's kid down the street, laughter cutting through the humidity. For a moment, it felt like peace. Until the next HOA patrol car stopped at the curb, lights flashing blue this time, and Kurt stepped out holding a printed notice. Mr. Brooks, he said, too formal now. We have reason to believe you're in violation of covenant cooperation. I exhaled. Is that even a thing? He smirked. It is now. Behind him, Aaron started walking over, phone already filming. The board didn't realize yet that the same law they weaponized against me had a fuse, and I was holding the match. Aaron's voice carried across the lawn like a whistle. You sure you want to keep talking, Kurt? Cameras are rolling, and this is a public common arts. He stiffened, glanced at her phone, then tucked his notice back into the folder. The other patrolman, a younger guy with a buzz cut, shifted nervously. They retreated toward the SUV. I waited until the taillights disappeared before speaking. He's testing boundaries now. Next comes the ambush meeting. Aaron nodded. Good. Let them call it. Gives you a timestamp. We sat down that evening with Marisol, who spread county maps and statute printouts over my kitchen table. The overhead light hummed. Parcel 7B22 was deeded as common recreation space in 2004, she said, tracing the survey line with her pen. Any sale requires a 2/3 vote of all lot owners. That's 106 ballots. They've filed 0. So it's void if they attempt it. Not void. Fraudulent. Big difference. Knowledge nugget number 3. In Florida, a homeowners association acts as a fiduciary for its members. Any self-dealing, like selling assets to related parties, can trigger both civil liability and insurer rescission. Aaron poured coffee while Marisol added, You'll want to keep this quiet until their next move. If they think you're coming, they'll bury emails. I smiled grimly. Then we wait. That week crawled. Every day I logged new notices. Driveway discoloration, unauthorized signage, the county's own survey flag, excessive porch lighting. The harassment montage wrote itself. I printed each one, hole-punched, indexed. Page numbers climbed, 63, 64, 65. I labeled the binder spine Exhibit A, continuous enforcement. The lowest point came Friday night when a letter arrived, certified mail. Notice of intent to lien, outstanding fines, $3,200. My wife's face went pale. They can't, she whispered. Can they? They can file, doesn't mean they'll win. But she cried anyway, and I felt that old helpless anger twist in my gut. For a moment I almost called Kurt, almost shouted it out. Instead I poured her tea, sat beside her and said, Give me 48 hours. We're not losing this house. 2 days later, I drove to the county clerk's office and requested a property lien search. The clerk typed, paused, frowned. Nothing recorded under your name, yet. Yet? They generated a pre-file number but never submitted supporting documents. So they're bluffing. Seems that way. When I told Marisol, she smiled for the first time. Perfect. Document their bluff, timestamp it, and let them file the fake notice. That's procedural fraud. Back home, I found another surprise. A flyer taped to every mailbox, bold red letters. Certain residents spreading misinformation. Your board protects your property values. Below it, my photo from the Facebook post, cropped tight. The smear campaign had begun. I posted a calm update. Everything I share is sourced from public record. Ask your own questions. Sunshine Law belongs to you. By evening, the neighborhood split. Some waved when I jogged past. Others turned away. Erin joked, "Congratulations, you're officially HOA folklore." Late that night, she stopped by with a portable scanner. "We need digital redundancy. I've seen files disappear when heat rises." She scanned each document methodically, naming files with timestamps down to the second. Her discipline steadied me. The next morning, I noticed a subtle shift. The HOA newsletter mentioned an emergency executive session to address misinformation. That was my cue. They were closing ranks. I checked the state's open meeting requirements. Any HOA discussion involving association property must remain open unless it's legal counsel or personnel. They'd violated that boundary. I sent a certified letter quoting Florida statute Barber 720.3032A. All members are entitled to attend meetings of the association. The paper cost me $7.85 to send. Small investment for the storm it'd trigger. 3 days later, Kurt appeared again, this time at my workplace. City Planning Department, downtown Jacksonville. He leaned out, and the front desk, pretending casual. "Just here to clarify some things," he told my assistant. I met him in the lobby. "Public building, Kurt. Keep it professional." He smiled that slick HOA smile. "We could settle this if you'd apologize at the next meeting. Say you overreacted." I studied him a moment. "Apologize for reading the law?" He sighed. "You're poisoning community trust." I leaned closer. "No, Kurt. You're monetizing it." He left, face tight. I knew then he'd overplay his hand soon. That evening, Erin texted, "Check the board agenda. They're scheduling an emergency assessment vote. 72 hours notice." My stomach dropped. That was fast and illegal. Assessments require 14 days minimum. They were trying to jam the parcel sale before the county caught wind. This was the countdown. I told Marisol, "We strike at the meeting." "Not yet," she said. "Let them announce the sale publicly first. Then we hit record." The next 48 hours blurred. Emails flew, posts raged, and flyers promised new amenities coming soon. The HOA claimed a private investor would revitalize the playground area. Erin's research nailed it. The investor was Davidson Civic Holdings, Kurt's brother-in-law again. She slid a fresh file toward me. "We have them boxed. Just wait." That night, I stared at my father's old hammer hanging in the garage. He'd carved his initials into the handle, RB for Richard Brooks. I ran my thumb over the groove and whispered, "You said build it right or don't build it at all. Guess we're still building." The morning of the meeting, rain threatened but held off. I loaded the binder, the easement file, and Marisol's affidavit into my briefcase. Erin pulled up in her truck, window down. "You ready?" she asked. "As I'll ever be." She grinned. "Good, because tonight, the fireworks are legal." The community center smelled like old carpet and wet raincoats. Rows of folding chairs faced a long table where the board sat. Kurt in the middle, flanked by 2 loyalists and their attorney, a young man with slick hair and an expensive pen. The projector hummed as they fumbled through their PowerPoint. "Proposal to repurpose Parcel 7B22, the screen read. Erin and I sat in the back, near the fire exit, camera phones discreetly angled. Marisol had already given me the go-ahead. "Record freely. It's a public meeting." Kurt tapped the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's agenda is simple. We have an opportunity to enhance our community amenities through a partnership with Davidson Civic Holdings." He said the name like it meant nothing, like it wasn't his brother-in-law's company. A hand went up. "Mrs. Ortega, the elderly neighbor who always brought cookies to the pool meetings. Will this increase our dues?" Kurt gave his rehearsed smile. "Only temporarily, roughly 8% for the improvement phase." I could practically hear Marisol's voice in my head. "Say the number out loud, make him commit." 8%, I repeated. The mic squealed when I pressed the talk button. Section 8.3 of our bylaws caps increases at 5 without a supermajority vote. How many ballots have you collected, Kurt? A murmur rippled through the room. He blinked. We're within procedural authority. Then show the vote count, I said, or the notarized meeting minutes. The attorney leaned toward his mic. Sir, this is not a cross-examination. No, I said, flipping open my binder. It's a meeting of record. I walked to the front, slow and steady, heels clicking on the tile. Every paper in that binder was neatly tabbed and dated. Here's the Duval County Maintenance Easement, Book 92, page 314, stating that Parcel 7B22 remains under county jurisdiction until 2031. Any sale without county release is unlawful. Gasps. A few neighbors craned forward. Kurt laughed nervously. That's outdated. Our counsel verified the easement was voided. Marisol stood from the back. Counsel would be Misty. Ken. She held up her phone displaying the county recorder's timestamp. Verified this morning, 8:47 a.m. The room turned electric. Then came the first reversal. I reached into the binder's red tab, silence until ready, and drew out a single-page assignment. I hold a recorded interest in that parcel through a public auction of maintenance liens dated last year. Davidson Civic never cleared them. I own the lien, gentlemen. You could have heard a pin drop. Kurt's jaw slackened. You... what? I bought it for $300, I said. At a county surplus sale. You'd have known if you'd checked the docket. Aaron whispered. Boom. Knowledge nugget number 4. In Florida, maintenance liens on common parcels can be sold at auction if left unpaid for 12 months. The lien holder gains standing in any property transaction. The HOA attorney scrambled through his files. That's irregular. We weren't notified. I smiled. Notification was published per statute, 3 consecutive weeks in the Florida Times-Union. Someone in the back muttered, Holy hell, he owns the park. Kurt slammed his gavel. Order, this is an ambush. Ambush? I said. No, Kurt, this is transparency. Then, right on cue, the door opened and 2 uniformed county code enforcement officers stepped in. Neutral authority. I'd invited them earlier to verify compliance. One officer approached the table. We received a formal complaint regarding unauthorized land sale within county easement. He looked at me, then at Kurt. We'll need to review all related documents immediately. The HOA attorney's pen clattered onto the table. Aaron leaned toward me. You just pulled their pin, Daniel. The rest of the meeting devolved into murmurs and shifting chairs. Some residents applauded quietly. Others looked stunned. Kurt tried to adjourn, but the officer stopped him. Sir, this meeting must remain open under statute until the inquiry is logged. Outside, rain finally began to fall. Heavy, cleansing rain that drummed on the metal awning as neighbors huddled under umbrellas. Erin exhaled smoke from her e-cig, shaking her head. That was clean, surgical. Not done yet, I said. They'll go defensive. We wait for the dominoes. She smirked. Dominoes are already tipping, Planner Man. Back home, I uploaded every recording to Cloud Backup and labeled the folder Exhibit B, Meeting Record, 9/22/23. The next morning, local news had already picked up whispers. Homeowners challenge HOA land deal. By afternoon, the board called an emergency session, closed door naturally. But this time, half the community demanded access. They couldn't hide behind executive privilege anymore. They were public spectacle. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from Marisol. County verified easement. Investigation open. Expect subpoenas by Friday. I sat on the porch, beer sweating in my hand, thunder rumbling somewhere offshore. My wife joined me, resting her head on my shoulder. You think this will end soon? Not end, I said softly. Evolve. She smiled faintly. That's the planner in you talking. Better than the fighter, I said, though my pulse still thrummed from the meeting. A flash of lightning illuminated the wet street, glinting off the HOA patrol's parked SUV. They didn't even pretend to patrol now. They just sat there, idling. Aaron texted, "Smile for the cameras. They're watching their empire crumble." And for the first time in months, I did smile. Because the balance had shifted, and every second they stayed defiant only deepened their loss. By Thursday morning, the HOA office looked like a bunker. Blinds drawn, lights off, only the faint hum of an old window AC unit breaking the silence. Rumors spread that Kurt's brother-in-law had pulled out of the Davidson Civic Holdings deal overnight, citing unexpected legal complications. I didn't gloat. I just printed the news article and filed it under domino evidence. That afternoon, retaliation hit new levels. 3 separate code citations arrived within 6 hours: trash can visibility, unregistered security camera, and unauthorized signage, because I taped the meeting notice to my mailbox. I almost laughed. Erin didn't. "They're cornered," she said. "Cornered people do stupid things." At dusk, a sheriff's cruiser idled outside. The deputy walked up, polite but weary. "Sir, we got a call about potential domestic disturbance. Just routine." I showed him my outdoor camera feed. "You're being used by a homeowner's board to harass a resident. There's no disturbance here." He sighed. "Wouldn't be the first time. I'll note it as unfounded." Knowledge nugget number 5. Filing knowingly false police reports as a form of intimidation can qualify as abuse of process under state law. Even HOAs aren't immune. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with my daughter, helping with her algebra. She looked up mid-problem and said, "You're winning, right?" I hesitated. "Winning's not the point, kiddo. Fixing is." She smiled weakly. "That's what Mom says you always do. Fix things." I wanted to believe that, but exhaustion crept in, the kind you feel behind the eyes. The price of principle is sleep. The following morning, my phone lit up with notifications, residents forwarding screenshots of the board's new community alert. They accused me of cyberbullying volunteers and jeopardizing neighborhood harmony. I posted one calm comment: "Harmony built on silence isn't peace, it's pressure. Choose which you want to live under." The thread exploded. By noon, over 300 comments, and tucked among them was a single message from a new user: "Check your mail slot, Daniel." Inside was a brown envelope with no return address. Inside that, a photocopy of an HOA expense ledger. Line item 47 jumped out. Consulting fee, DCH Holdings, $12,000. No approval. Vote, no contractor form, just paid from maintenance reserves. Erin whistled when she saw it. Straight from the slush fund. This could sink them. I called Marisol. She picked up mid-sip. "That's misappropriation of restricted funds. Send it scanned. Top priority. Don't confront yet. Let the county auditors see it first." We did. Within 24 hours, I received an acknowledgement from the Inspector General's office. Review initiated under Chapter 112 Ethics Parameters. By Friday night, the HOA's lawyer had resigned. I found out because he left a voicemail on my office line. "Mr. Brooks, I can't represent parties who fail to disclose financial conflicts. Good luck." That was the sound of the first real crack. Still, they tried one more scare tactic. Saturday morning, someone left a fake notice of lien enforcement on my door, stamped with a forged clerk seal. I called the sheriff again. This time, the same deputy returned. He compared it to a real document and shook his head. "Felony if proven forged. You keeping copies?" I showed him the binder. He laughed softly. "You're better organized than most lawyers I see." Erin arrived mid-conversation, carrying her thermos. "If they're faking seals now, they're desperate." "Desperate people make mistakes," I said. "We just have to catch the right one in daylight." That daylight came quicker than expected. Monday morning, the county's online docket listed State versus HOA of Pine Ridge Estates, preliminary inquiry. It wasn't a full case yet, but the notice alone rattled them. The board called an urgent mediation. I attended, quiet, professional, recorder visible. Kurt looked exhausted, tie crooked, sweat blooming under his collar. "You've made your point," he said. "Drop the complaints and we'll rescind your fines." I slid the forged lien notice across the table. "I'll drop nothing, but I'll offer you something else, truth in writing." He frowned. "Meaning?" "Meaning I'm willing to trade my lien leverage for structural reform." Erin's eyebrows shot up. She caught on immediately, but I wasn't ready to lay all cards down. Not yet. Outside, humid wind carried the scent of rain and cut grass. I felt my father's hammer weight in my memory again, the one hanging above the workbench. Build it right or don't build it at all. That night, while the neighborhood slept, I sat under the porch light drafting a proposal titled Community Integrity Charter. It would become my blueprint for reversal number 2, But for now it was just an idea. Ink, paper, and resolve. Before turning in, I typed one more line on the HOA thread. Policy versus property. How far should any HOA control your lawn, your porch, your life? Where's the line? Comment below. I hit post, shut off the light, and finally, for the first time in weeks, slept through the night. The next morning smelled like wet cedar and burned coffee. I woke before sunrise, my phone buzzing with notifications. Overnight, the post had gone semi-viral in HOA forums, shared hundreds of times, thousands of comments. Some called me the Florida guy who owned the park. Others just wrote, "Finally, someone fought back." By noon, local Channel 7 parked a van at the cul-de-sac. The reporter, a calm woman named Lydia Tran, knocked politely. "Mr. Brooks, we're covering the county inquiry into Pine Ridge Estates HOA. Mind saying a few words?" I kept it brief. "Everything I've done is within the law. Homeowners deserve transparency, that's all." Her cameraman nodded. Lydia smiled. "Clean soundbite. You'll air at 6. Aaron texted 5 minutes later. "You just made their nightmares go prime time." Kurt's reaction came fast. A furious email blast to residents titled, "False Narratives and Outside Interference." He accused me of manipulating the press and weaponizing bureaucracy. But every claim he made came without citation, without evidence, empty noise echoing into a wall of paper I'd already built. I replied to the entire list. Transparency doesn't need permission. If you're confident in your actions, publish the ledger, the votes, and the minutes. If not, stop hiding behind rhetoric. The thread went public within hours. Residents began forwarding screenshots to me, offering support, asking for copies of the easement file. The once silent majority had finally started reading. Erin showed up that evening, wearing her Neighbourhood Watch windbreaker. "You realize they're cornered enough to lawyer up again," she said. "And this time, it won't be the young guy with the expensive pen. It'll be someone mean." I nodded. "Good. I'm almost ready for the set piece." She grinned. "So what's the plan?" I flipped my laptop around to show her a draft agenda request. County mediation hearing, open to public record, next Wednesday at 9 a.m. They think it's a review. It's actually an audit confirmation hearing. "Visual beat," she said, chuckling. "You're turning this into theater." "Documented theater," I said. "The kind that ends with signatures." That night, thunder rolled through the palms. I opened my binder, now 3 inches thick, and reviewed every numbered tab. Violations, easement, forged notices, expenditure ledger, the lien assignment. Then I added a fresh section labeled Reform Terms, Draft. Each bullet point was simple. Term limits for board members, 2 years. Mandatory annual audit with published report. Open records portal for all financial transactions. Fee rollback to pre-2020 levels. Community access charter, ensuring shared amenities remain public. Reversal number 1 was already in play, the lien leverage. Reversal number 2 would turn that power into something better than revenge. Before bed, I made one more post, timed for early morning scrolls. Fines versus fairness. $250, $500, $1,000. Justice or revenue scheme. What's your limit? By sunrise, hundreds of replies. People didn't just vent. They shared documents, receipts, photos of their own violation letters. My inbox became a national archive of frustration. It was exhausting, yes, but also proof that this fight mattered beyond our cul-de-sac. Tuesday evening, Kurt came to my porch again, this time alone. His voice was tired, almost human. "Daniel, you could have just asked for a seat on the board." I studied him. "And would you have allowed it?" He hesitated. "Probably not." "There's your answer," I said. He looked at the binder sitting beside me. "You really bought that lien?" "Every cent, $300 plus filing." He rubbed his temples. "You don't understand what this means for me." "Sure I do," I said softly. "It means consequences." He stared at the streetlight for a long moment before walking away, shoulders sagging like a man realizing the storm's already passed, but the water's still rising. At dawn, the day of the hearing, the air was thick with humidity and tension. The community center parking lot overflowed. Residents, media vans, even a few county staffers in windbreakers labeled code enforcement. I carried my binder under one arm, the lien certificate in a clear folder under the other. Erin followed beside me, calm as ever. "You're about to walk into history," she said. "History smells like mildew and bureaucracy," I muttered. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered. The county officer from before, Lieutenant Price, stood near the dais, clipboard in hand. "Morning, Mr. Brooks. You requested verification of the lien claim?" "Yes, sir." He nodded. "You'll have it." Across the aisle, Kurt whispered furiously to his new attorney, a gray-haired man who kept glancing at the press row. When the hearing began, I spoke clearly into the mic. "Per Florida statute, IR 720.303, I request confirmation that the HOA acted outside its authority repertoires regarding Parcel 7B22 and subsequent assessments." Price reviewed the files, his pen scratching. "Confirmed. County easement remains valid. Lien purchase documented." The room erupted. Gasps, a few cheers, scattered claps. Cameras flashed. Kurt's attorney tried to object, but Price raised his hand. "Mr. Brooks's documentation is lawful and complete. The HOA's actions violated disclosure requirements. Further penalties will be determined pending audit." Erin squeezed my arm. "Visual beat number 1 achieved," she whispered. But I wasn't celebrating yet. The true win wouldn't come from humiliation. It would come from reform. Still, when I caught Kurt's defeated glance, a part of me, a smaller, pettier part, felt justice's warmth like morning sun through storm clouds. Outside, reporters swarmed. Lydia from Channel 7 asked, "What happens now, Mr. Brooks?" "Now," I said, "we fix what's broken, not just punish who broke it." I could almost feel my father nod in approval. The county's ruling dropped like thunder through the neighborhood. Within 24 hours, Kurt's resignation email hit everyone's inbox. Due to ongoing distractions, I'm stepping aside to protect community unity. No apology, just a half-sentence eulogy for his authority. Erin called it, "the paper hang." "They always quit right after the facts go public," she said. "Not before. Never before." But the damage had already rippled. 2 other board members followed him out by the weekend, citing family stress. Their departure left a vacuum, and the HOA bylaws required a special election within 30 days. For the first time, real change wasn't theoretical. It was procedural. The media frenzy cooled, but the neighborhood buzzed. People who hadn't spoken in years started stopping by my driveway, asking how to volunteer or just to say thanks. Mrs. Ortega baked cookies again for the first open forum. Even the sheriff's deputy who'd once checked on my disturbance stopped to shake my hand. "Heard you turned your HOA inside out," he said. "Wish more folks fought smart like that." Still, a few loyalists lingered online, pushing the narrative that I'd invited government overreach. I didn't argue. I just posted one calm line. Accountability isn't interference, it's hygiene. Erin and I spent those days assembling the reform packet, my proposal polished, her edits sharp as wire. We rehearsed the public presentation like a courtroom script. Who'd speak when, which documents would go up on the projector, where the cameras would sit. The county scheduled the formal follow-up meeting for Tuesday evening. By then, the community was ready for spectacle, half afraid, half eager. When the clock hit 6, the hall filled faster than a fire drill. Reporters lined the back wall. I stood, heart steady, binder open. "Our HOA lost its compass," I began. "It governed through secrecy, not service. Tonight we rebuild that trust, with structure." I outlined each reform point with precision. Term limits, audits, fee rollbacks, open records. The applause after each line wasn't loud. It was relieved, like collective exhale after months of tension. Then, mid-speech, a voice cut through from the second row. "So what happens to the people who did this to you?" I looked straight at the man, new homeowner, angry but honest. "They face the law, same as anyone else," I said. "But the rest of us, our job is to make sure no one has to fight this hard again." It wasn't rehearsed, but it landed. Lieutenant Price, standing by the door as official observer, nodded once. Neutral authority still watching, validating. Erin whispered, "Visual beat number 2, public redemption shot." After the meeting, a small crowd lingered by the refreshment table. One guy in a baseball cap asked, "How'd you even start all this?" "Records," I said. "Paper doesn't lie. You just have to read it." That night, I walked home under streetlights glinting on puddles. The neighborhood felt different, quieter, lighter. For the first time in months, the patrol SUVs were gone. Only the cicadas hummed. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Marisol. Audit complete. County recommending restitution and board training mandate. You did it, Daniel. I stared at the screen, feeling both heavier and lighter. The revenge part of me wanted to savor it, but the better part, the one my father would have recognized, just felt relief. Still, I knew the story wasn't finished. I opened my notepad app and typed a new question to post later. Recording rights. Should homeowners be allowed to film board meetings? Accountability or privacy invasion? Comment below. It wasn't bait. It was conversation, the kind that keeps reform alive after the headlines fade. The next morning, Lydia's follow-up aired. Pine Ridge Estates resident exposes HOA misconduct, prompts county reforms. Her closing line stuck with me. Sometimes, sunlight comes from the most unexpected address on the block. When she said it, they showed a shot of my porch light, gold against the gray dawn, letterbox gleaming with the reflection of the county seal still taped there. Erin stopped by with her usual thermos, leaned on the railing and said, "So what's next for the neighborhood hero?" I chuckled. "Hero's a stretch. I just hated being lied to." "You turned hate into homework," she said. "That's rarer than heroism." The new interim board scheduled elections for the following week. My name ended up on the ballot, nominated by write-in. I hadn't planned it, but maybe that was the point. When the ballots were counted, 58 votes out of 106, I won by 3. Standing in the same hall where they'd once mocked me, I signed the acceptance form with a borrowed pen. Ink bled slightly on the cheap paper. Across the room, Price gave a small nod before leaving. The symbol wasn't lost on me. I raised my hand, steady, and said, "First order of business, audit publication and restitution compliance." The crowd applauded, but I caught Erin's grin. "You really are a planner," she mouthed. And for the first time, I allowed myself a full smile, not the grim one of survival, but the quiet one of arrival. The next 30 days moved like a slow sunrise, steady, inevitable. My first act as interim chair wasn't revenge. It was inventory. Every check stub, every ledger line, every missing vote record. We logged them, scanned them, and handed them to the county's compliance team. For once, the HOA office lights stayed on past dark for the right reason, rebuilding, not plotting. Erin ran the neighborhood watch under the new charter, laughing that she'd finally gotten a legal badge. Marisol volunteered as our external auditor liaison, her sleeves perpetually ink-stained from annotating filings. Even Mrs. Ortega joined the finance committee, wielding cookies like diplomacy. At our first open meeting, I stood at the same podium Kurt had ruled from and said, "Transparency isn't optional, it's oxygen." Applause rippled, but I held the moment quiet afterward, because silence, clean silence, felt like proof of peace. The reforms passed unanimously: term limits, open ledger portal, independent ethics committee, and fee rollback to 2020 levels. The county formally recognized Pine Ridge as compliant and restructured by November 3rd. I marked that date with a note in my binder: end of hostilities. When the county report came out, the language was dry, but the meaning was clear. Board engaged in acts of mismanagement and self-dealing, remedied through voluntary reform and oversight. Kurt faced misdemeanor fraud charges for the forged lien notice and accepted a plea: restitution, probation, and permanent bar from HOA service. The Davidson Civic Holdings LLC was dissolved. The domino collapse had finished cleanly. But endings aren't clean without reflection. One night, I walked the perimeter trail behind the playground, the same ground they once tried to sell. Fireflies blinked over the grass, and a faint smell of rain clung to the air. I thought of my father, of how he'd taught me that every beam, every nail, every line on a blueprint represented a promise. Maybe this was mine. Erin joined me, sipping from her thermos. "You ever miss the fight?" she asked. "Sometimes," I admitted. "But peace takes maintenance, too." She nodded, her breath visible in the cooling air. "You know, not everyone gets to turn war into reform." I smiled. "That's because most people stop at revenge." Before leaving, I taped a small sign to the community board beside the playground. HOA stories. New chapter begins here. Just 4 words, but they felt like closure. Then I posted the final message on the channel. If you believe I fought the right way, and this is how it should end, say a few words in the comments for your friend. Subscribe so future stories reach you first. And as responsible citizens, share this so others learn, because sunlight only works if we open the blinds. A week later, Channel 7 aired their final update. Pine Ridge Estates sets statewide precedent for HOA transparency. They showed the new playground sign, kids laughing in the background, the old security SUV replaced by a maintenance truck with the logo, Community Works. The epilogue came in small snapshots. County Ethics Office issuing a memo praising citizen-led reform. An insurer letter reinstating our community policy at reduced rates. My daughter, now 13, painting the words "Open to All" on the park bench. Erin laughing as she taught a workshop on homeowners' rights at the local library. And me, standing at the podium one last time, binder in hand, reading from a single handwritten note I'd tucked behind the cover. Law without empathy is control. Empathy without structure is chaos. But together they make community. I closed the binder, the satisfying click of the rings echoing through the quiet hall. What changed after? Everything subtle. Dues dropped. Meetings filled. The patrols became volunteers. Transparency replaced suspicion. And at night, when I turn off the porch light, I see another glow across the street. Erin's truck headlights cutting briefly through the dark, making sure everything stays calm. I still hear my father sometimes in the hum of the air vent, that steady voice saying, "Build it right, son." And I did. Because after all the noise, all the paper, and all the nights spent staring at a glowing laptop screen, I learned the simplest truth there is about neighborhoods, power, and peace. You don't win by burning the house down. You win by proving you own the foundation.